So, against all odds, everyday feminism actually managed to raise enough money to stay alive. Not only that, but they raised $50,000. This event has actually inspired me to open a Patreon account. For those of you that don't know, the way Patreon works is you pledge $1 or more a month, and in return you can receive rewards. Unfortunately, all I really have to offer right now is having your name in the credits, but hopefully I may be able to add more in the future. If everyday feminism is worth $50,000, I would think my channel would be worth at least $12 a year. I'll be sure to leave the link to that down in the description. But enough self-promotion, today we're looking at a comic produced by Everyday Feminism where they explain why you can't use the dictionary definition of racism to define what racism means. Let's begin.
Well, the dictionary definition of racism is... Hold on, I'm going to have you pause here for a second. I think you're trying to make a dictionary definition about a socially complex word into an argument, and it's not going to work the way you think it will. Dictionaries are these man-made documents that are supposed to somehow be an authority on how we speak and write, but that is practically impossible. No document could possibly capture the variations and nuances of a language. People seem to view dictionaries as being objective, like they don't have a stake in what they're describing, but this isn't the case.
I should probably point out the obvious irony here. This comic was most likely made by a feminist, and by far the most common response to any criticism against feminism is, "Feminism is about gender equality. It's in the dictionary. Look it up." But when the dictionary describes anything that doesn't fit with the SJW narrative, it apparently can't be trusted. But, to be fair, maybe the person behind this comic hasn't used the dictionary definition argument for feminism. In any case, let's move on.
Dictionaries express a point of view, an opinion, nothing more. People insist on pointing to dictionary definitions and arguments, but they don't consider whose opinion they're pointing to. Dictionaries as books describing language are historically prescriptive. That means they were meant to tell people how they should speak. The movement to begin writing dictionaries from a descriptivist point of view, that means recording how people actually speak, language behavior, was controversial and highly contentious.
Now I do agree with this to an extent. The dictionary isn't an end-all be-all, and the definition of words can change over time with their usage. For example, when a group of people ascribe a label to themselves but don't represent what the definition asserts, then that word is open to be redefined, given its usage has changed. But with the word racist, it's different. It's a label you ascribe to someone or something else with a strong negative connotation. Its definition is dictated by what people mean when they use it. Hence where this satirical definition, anyone winning any argument with a liberal, comes from. The point is, the only reason why the definition of racism should change is if there's a reason it needs to be changed. Give me a reason why the dictionary definition's opinion is less valid than the SJW definition of prejudice plus power.
The writers and editors of the popular academic dictionaries have been overwhelmingly white academic straight men, and that has influenced the kind of language they have allowed in their dictionaries and how that language is described.
Oh, for the love of...
So language in dictionaries tends to reflect the opinions of white straight academic men on what is acceptable English language, including the exclusion or denigration of different dialects and usages. For example, the struggle for the recognition of the grammatical legitimacy of African-American vernacular English has been hampered by a historical resistance by English dictionaries to include AAVE as acceptable usage. Ahem, I think you meant to say she is here, not she be here. No, I meant what I said.
The fact that you think black people are too stupid to learn proper grammar to the point where we need to include a revised version of the English language says a lot about how highly you think of them.
The language describing institutions of oppression like racism, ableism, and transmisogyny is of more value when it is interpreted and defined by the group's effects, not the groups in power.
Who defines the words of little importance? What matters is whether or not they do a good job at it. Throughout this comic, you fail to give any reason why we need to change the definition of racism other than the dictionary was written by whites, so it must be wrong. Give me a reason why we need to redefine the word racist so it excludes white people. It's not like the SJW prejudice plus power definition is somehow necessary to get across the idea of a system working to oppress someone, because we already have terms like systemic and institutional racism. If we actually went by that definition, then logically speaking, the term institutional racism would be redundant. Additionally, poor people using racial slurs wouldn't be racist because it's not coming from an institution. I could also point to the mainstream media which conveniently ignored the riots in Milwaukee where white people were assaulted solely for being white. So if an institution is required for something to be racist, then white people could still experience racism from the institution of media, showing a clear bias in how it displays racial prejudice. You also clearly don't want to redefine the word racist to make it more specific and prevent it from being used frivolously, because if that was the case, you wouldn't use it frivolously to describe things like microaggressions. And that's another thing that really pisses me off. You want to expand the definition of racism so petty things like wanting to touch someone's hair are called racist, while also narrowing it so horrible acts like the Chicago kidnapping aren't. The fact is, you don't actually care about making the concepts conveyed behind the word racism more pronounced. You just want an easy way out when someone accuses you of being racist, because you don't like your special buzzwords being used against you. And if you have any reason other than that, I'd be glad to hear it. But until then, we're not going to use your definition because it serves no purpose. It's nothing more than an attempt to move the goalpost by claiming that racism is only racism when it's backed by an institution. And even then, an institution is only considered an institution when it fits your agenda. We're not playing your game of word semantics because it's pointless. When we say racism, we mean prejudice against people on the basis of their skin. You can use it however you like, but you have no authority in how anyone else gets to use it. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.